Hi guys, so this is Mr. Tan, and today we are focusing on entrepreneurship, and we're focusing on P2. P2 says explore the similarities and differences between different entrepreneurial ventures. And as in P1, it's kind of like a follow-on from P1 to look at the similarities and differences of the entrepreneurial ventures. And in P1, we said that we can view entrepreneurial ventures in two ways. One, in terms of their size, and two, in terms of Miles and Snow, when they talk about the different organizational strategies a company could take. So firstly, if we look at the organizational size, then you can define an organizational size, an organizational venture by size, in terms of a micro entrepreneurial venture, a small entrepreneurial venture, a medium entrepreneurial venture, or a large entrepreneurial venture. And to define these, we can define them in two ways: by number of employees and by turnover. So, if we look at the number of employees, we can see for a micro organization or entrepreneurial venture, it's between 0 and 9 employees. For a small entrepreneurial venture, it's between 10 and 49 employees. For a medium entrepreneurial venture, it's between 50 and 249 employees. And for a large entrepreneurial venture, it's 250 plus. If we look at turnover, for a micro entrepreneurial venture, it's between under 2 million turnover. For a small entrepreneurial venture, we're looking from 2 to under 10 million. For a medium entrepreneurial venture, we're looking between 10 million to under 50 million. Okay? And then for a large entrepreneurial venture, we're looking at 50 million plus in turnover. So can someone give me any companies turning over more than 50 million, please? Tesco, Sainsbury's, McDonald's. Good. So, okay. So what are some of the similarities between these different sizes then, please? What's the major similarity between all these type sizes, regardless of size? Good. Well, all of these entrepreneurial type ventures, regardless of the size, micro, small, medium, or large, aim, or you have the objective of making as much profit as possible. Okay. What are some of the other similarities between these entrepreneurial ventures?
Tax.
If they're making a profit, these entrepreneurial ventures will have to pay, if they're in the UK, if they're a private or public limited company, corporation tax, and if they're a partnership and sole trader, then they will have to pay self-employed taxes. Okay. What other similarities are there, please? So we talked about profit, we talked about tax.
Law.
Yeah, the law. So there are various laws that all of these organizational ventures have to apply to. So the Data Protection Act, if you have employees, the Health and Safety at Work Act, 1974, and especially things like, if you're selling goods and services, the Consumer Rights Act, 1st of October 2015, which has now taken over part of that from the Sales of Goods Act 1979, which talks about goods being fit for purpose, of merchantable quality, and as described. Okay, so again here in sections 28, subsection 3, as regards to delivery, once you place an order, goods must be then delivered within 28 days, unless otherwise specified. And goods must be, as described, according to section 19, subsection 1 of the Consumer Rights Act, 1st of October 2015, which says this. So again, if they don't comply to these, then in terms of contract law, offer, acceptance, consideration, capacity, legality, intent to create legal relations, there will be a breach of contract, a breach of an implied term by law. Okay. Any other similarities? Not that we can think of. Okay, what about differences?
The structure.
Yes, the organizational structure is obviously going to be perhaps taller as the organization grows, taller with more hierarchical levels. Okay, there are many different organizational structures, but the micro and small organizations, from 0 to 10 employees are going to be very decentralized, with small functional areas where some people are actually doing more than one function. Whereas in larger organizations, you have separate departments with many people in that department to cater for that function because the organization is larger. So if we take, for example, in HR, in terms of a micro business that has only 5 employees, is there going to be a HR department? No. What about Tesco's? Do they have an HR department? Yes. And how many people do you think work for the HR department? Lots. Yes. Depending upon what area they're catering for. So we can see differences there. So we can see differences in law. We can see differences in organizational structure. Okay, and we can see similarities between these organizations, entrepreneurial ventures as well. Okay, so the second one, in terms of entrepreneurial type venture, we could look at was what? Good. By strategy. Miles and Snow talk about the different strategies and what predominantly are the 4 different types of strategies that an organizational type venture could adopt. It could be a what? Prospector, good. What next? What else?
Defender.
A defender. Analyzer and reactor. Okay, so we've got a prospector, a defender, analyzer and a reactor. So what are some of the similarities between all of these type strategic entrepreneurial ventures? Good. Regardless of what area or what strategy or any of these companies are trying to adopt, they're all, look this way for a second, they're all trying to make as much profit as possible. Okay? Can we think of any other similarities?
Creating value.
Sorry?
Creating value for their customers.
Creating value for the customers. Good. And we look at these strategies in a second. But also, very similar to the different sides of the organizations, all these organizations are selling products and services, yes? So if they're selling products and services, then they still need to comply with the Consumer Rights Act 1st of October 2015. They still need to make sure that goods are operating for quality, fit for purpose, and as described. They still need to make sure, if they've got employees, that the employees adhere to the health and that your company adheres to the Health and Safety at Work Act, catering for your employees, the Data Protection Act. So you need to make sure that all of these companies, regardless of the strategy, will have these things in common. They will have to adhere to these, otherwise they will come foul of UK legislation. What about some of the differences? So if we look at the differences, we can see the differences in the strategy themselves. So the prospector, what type of strategy does he adopt? Innovative. It takes risks, and they encourage new product development. They have decentralization of power within the organization to help people and employees to come up with new ideas. In addition to that, we can see that when a new idea comes up in this innovative company, which is welcomed, then they have a separate unit dedicated to focus resources for that new product, that new idea. Okay, which is very, very creative, and it is quite risky, but it's welcomed. You've done a good thing. You're encouraged to do it. What about a defender? What type of strategy does a defender take?
Protecting its place in the market.
Yes, it's trying to protect its existing marketplace. In direct comparison to the prospector, the prospector is looking to develop his existing marketplace, but also sell existing products to new marketplaces, and also sell new products to new marketplaces. Whereas the defender is not doing that. The defender is just focusing on his marketplace and trying to defend that. So they're not really trying to be risk adverse, not looking for new markets, not looking for new products, trying to defend what they currently have, like Bic pen. So they might develop that to a degree and add value to it, like you said before, but they're not trying to come up with a completely new Bic pen. Yeah. What about the analyzer? What are they like?
They check their current business.
Good.
And then try to be innovative.
And they try to be innovative as well. So they do focus on their core marketplace, and they try and protect that. As we've seen in Tesco's, they try and protect their marketplace. But at the same time, they try and be innovative. Tesco's have come up with loads of innovative things, like the Tesco Club Card, the self-service tills, Tesco's Direct, the 4 different types of Tesco's in terms of the Metro store, the Superstore, the Tesco's Express, and Tesco's Direct. So we can see here that the analyzer is a different type of strategy, and the differences in terms of allocation of resources to various functions. So here, the resources are being to defend, but to develop. The defender is using all its resources to defend, whereas the innovator is using their resources to come up with as many new ideas, many new products in many new marketplaces, regardless of the marketplaces. And the reactor, what's the reactor doing?
Market situation.
It's reacting to current market situation. I think the example I saw was the specific example I saw was the what was it now? IH market for trucks. The IH market for trucks in the 1970s, and they had a dominant market position. They were into trucks.